Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books here in the live studios in ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram, Govardhan, right across the street on the other side of the Parikrama Marg, which goes around Govardhan Hill. So we're right at the feet of Giriraj, Govardhan. Here at Bhakti-Mat and I are still here, relishing the atmosphere in Govardhan. Now it's the most beautiful time. The weather's perfect. Kartik's over. It's very peaceful. We had a very nice group of Chinese devotees here today that I spoke to for a few minutes. And welcome back to all of you who are out there in cyberspace, giving me unlimited inspiration to do this, knowing that Srila Prabhupada's main thrust of his movement was hearing about Krishna, was hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and now we're reaching devotees. And from what they tell me, reviving their taste to hear the Prabhupada's books. Okay, so let us start. Every night we do this, we read this beautiful glorification of the Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. Hopefully it will seep into our consciousness so that we can realize more deeply just how fortunate we are and what we're reading. Okay, Srimad-Bhagavatam Mihima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami. It goes like this. Sarva Shastram Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaya Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwando Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life, heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madgodo Mad Mahadana Manishtadaga Mad Bhagya Madanandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin adini chochata kada hanamun chagadachin mam premna retkanta yospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, so here we are in the third canto, 16th chapter, beginning with the 16th verse. The four Kumaras are now going to offer their prayers to Lord Vishnu, who had so kindly come out of Vaikuntha just after they had cursed the gatekeepers, Jaya and Vijaya. And he delivered this beautiful, Lord Vishnu delivered this beautiful speech to the four Kumaras, begging forgiveness. Can you believe it? And telling them, whatever my servants do, if they offend someone, I take it as myself offending, and I'm willing to lop off my own arm for you because you're my dear devotees. That's how dear Krishna's devotees are to him. So now we're going to hear how dear the Lord is to the devotees by hearing the prayers of the four Kumaras. Text 16. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. For even though you are the supreme ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. Purport. The sages could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is above everyone, was speaking as if he were in the wrong. Therefore, it was difficult. Therefore, it was difficult for them to understand the words of the Lord. They could understand, however, that the Lord was speaking in such a humble way just to show them his all-merciful favor. Text 17. O Lord, you are the supreme director of the Brahminical culture. Your considering the Brahmanas to be in the highest position is your example for teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipable deity, not only for the gods, but for the Brahmanas also. Purport. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. There are undoubtedly many demigods, the chiefs of whom are Brahma and Shiva. Lord Vishnu is the Lord of Brahma and Shiva, not to speak of the Brahmanas in this material world. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is very favorable towards all activities performed according to Brahminical culture, or the qualities of control of the senses and mind, cleanliness, forbearance, faith in scripture, and practical and theoretical knowledge. The Lord is the super soul of everyone. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that the Lord is the source of all emanations. Thus he is also the source of Brahma and Shiva. Text 18. You are the source of the eternal occupation of the living entity, of all living entities. And by your multi-manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme objective of religious principles, and in our opinion, you are inexhaustible and unchangeable eternally. Purport. The statement in this verse, Dharmasya Paramo Guya, refers to the most confidential part of all religious principles. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Lord Krishna in his advice to Arjuna is, give up all other religious engagement and just surrender unto me. This is the most confidential knowledge in executing religious principles. In the Bhagavatam also it is stated that if one does not become Krishna conscious after very rigidly executing one's specified religious duties, all his labor in following so-called religious principles is simply a waste of time. Here also, the sages confirm the statement that the Supreme Lord, not the demigods, is the ultimate goal of all religious principles. There are many foolish propagandists who say that worship of the demigods is also a way to reach the supreme goal, but in the authorized statements of Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, this is not accepted. Bhagavad Gita says that one who worships a particular demigod can reach the demigod's planet, but one who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead can enter into Vaikuntha. Some propagandists say that regardless of what one does, he will ultimately reach the supreme abode of the Personality of Godhead. But this is not valid. The Lord is eternal, the Lord's servitor is eternal, and the Lord's abode is also eternal. They are all described here as sanatana, or eternal. The result of devotional service, therefore, is not temporary, as is the achievement of heavenly planets by worshipping the demigods. The sages wanted to stress that although the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, says that he worships the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, actually the Lord is worshipable not only by the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, but also by the demigods. Text 19. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nations by ceasing all material desires. It is possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored. It is not possible, therefore, I'll read this again, translation. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nations by ceasing all material desires. It is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. Purport. Unless one is favored by the Supreme Lord, one cannot cross over the ocean of the nations of repeated birth and death. Here it is stated that yogis or mystics cross beyond nations by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many kinds of mystics, such as the Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, and Bhakti Yogi. The karmis particularly search after the favor of the demigods. The jnanis want to become one with the Supreme Absolute Truth, and the yogis are satisfied simply by partial vision of the personality of Godhead, Paramatma, and ultimately by oneness with Him. But the bhaktas, the devotees, want to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally and serve Him. It has already been admitted that the Lord is eternal, and those who want the favor of the Supreme Lord perpetually are also eternal. Therefore, yogis here means devotees. By the mercy of the Lord, devotees can easily pass beyond the nations of birth and death and attain the eternal abode of the Lord. The Lord is therefore not in need of another's favor, because no one is equal to or greater than Him. Actually, everyone needs the favor of the Lord for successful understanding of His human mission. Text 20. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, the dust of whose feet is worn on the head by others, waits upon you as appointed, for she is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the King of Bees, who hovers on the fresh wreath of tulsi leaves offered at your feet by some blessed devotee. Purport. As previously described, tulsi has attained all superior qualities due to being placed at the lotus feet of the Lord. The comparison made here is very nice. As the King of Bees hovers over the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, so Lakshmi, the goddess who is sought by the demigods, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and everyone else, always engages in rendering service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The conclusion is that no one can be the benefactor of the Lord. Everyone is actually the servant of the Lord. Text 21. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees, yet you are never attached to the goddesses of fortune who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srimads on your chest? Read that again. This is so nice. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees, yet you are never attached to the goddesses of fortune who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivats on your chest? So, I mean, here they're saying plainly that the pure devotees are more dear to the Lord than the goddess of fortune and the Brahmanas. Purport. It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the Lord is always served by many hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune in his Vaikuntha planet. Yet because of his attitude of renunciation of all opulences, he is not attached to any one of them. The Lord has 6 opulences: unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited strength, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited renunciation. All the demigods and other living entities worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, just to get her favor. That the Lord is never attached to her because he can create an unlimited number of such goddesses for his transcendental service. The goddesses of fortune, Lakshmi, is sometimes envious of the tulsi leaves which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, for they remain fixed there and do not move. Whereas Lakshmiji, although stationed on the chest of the Lord, by the chest of the Lord, sometimes has to please other devotees who pray for her favor. Lakshmiji sometimes has to go to satisfy her numerous devotees. But tulsi leaves never forsake their position, and the Lord therefore appreciates the service of the tulsi more than the service of Lakshmi. When the Lord says, therefore, that it is due to the causeless mercy of the Brahmanas that Lakshmiji does not leave him, we can understand that Lakshmiji is attracted by the opulence of the Lord, not by the Brahmanas' benedictions upon him. The Lord is not dependent on anyone's mercy for his opulence. He is always self-sufficient. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. Let's hear that last sentence again. This is very important. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to the benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. In other words, his opulence, he's self-opulent. He doesn't depend on anyone else for his opulence. Text 22. O Lord, you are the personification of all religion. Therefore you manifest yourself in 3 millenniums, and thus you protect this universe, which consists of animate and inanimate beings. By your grace, which is of pure goodness and is the bestower of all blessings, kindly drive away the elements of rajas and tamas for the sake of the demigods and the twice born. Purport. The Lord is addressed in this verse as Triyuga, or one who appears in 3 millenniums, namely the Satya, Dwapara, and Treta Yugas. He is not mentioned as appearing in the 4th millennium, or Kali Yuga. It is described in Vedic literature that in Kali Yuga he comes as Chana avatar, or an incarnation, but he does not appear as a manifest incarnation. I'll read that again. It is described in the Vedic literature that in Kali Yuga he comes as Chana avatar, or an incarnation, but he does not appear as a manifest incarnation. In the other yugas, however, the Lord is a manifest incarnation, and therefore he is addressed as Triyuga, or the Lord who appears in 3 yugas. Sridhar Swami describes Triyuga as follows. Yuga means couple, and Tri means 3. The Lord is manifested as three couples by his six opulences, or three couples of opulences. In that way, he can be addressed as Triyuga. The Lord is the personality of religious principles. In 3 millenniums, religious principles are protected by 3 kinds of spiritual culture, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. The Lord is called Triyuga in that way also. In the age of Kali, these 3 requisites to spiritual culture are almost absent. But the Lord is so kind that in spite of Kali Yuga's being devoid of these 3 spiritual qualities, he comes and protects the people of this age in his covered incarnation as Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is called covered because although he is Krishna himself, he presents himself as a devotee of Krishna, not directly Krishna. The devotees pray to Lord Chaitanya, therefore, to eliminate their stock of passion and ignorance, the most conspicuous assets of this yuga. In the Krishna consciousness movement, one cleanses himself of the modes of passion and ignorance by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, as introduced by Lord Chaitanya. The 4 Kumaras were cognizant of their situation in the modes of passion and ignorance because, although in Vaikuntha, they wanted to curse devotees of the Lord. Since they were conscious of their own weakness, they prayed to the Lord to remove their still existing passion and ignorance. The 3 transcendental qualifications, cleanliness, austerity, and mercy, are the qualifications of the twice born and the demigods. Those who are not situated in the quality of goodness cannot accept these 3 principles of spiritual culture. For the Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, there are 3 sinful activities which are prohibited, namely illicit sex, intoxication, and eating food other than prasad offered to Krishna. These 3 prohibitions are based on the principles of austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. Devotees are merciful because they spare the poor animals, and they are clean because they are free of contamination from unwanted foodstuff and unwanted habits. Austerity is represented by restricted sex life. These principles, indicated by the prayers of the 4 Kumaras, should be followed by the devotees who are engaged in Krishna consciousness. Text 23. O Lord, you are the protector of the highest, of the twice born. If you do not protect them by offering worship and mild words, then certainly the auspicious path of worship will be rejected by people in general, who act on the strength and authority of your Lordship. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated by the Lord himself that the acts and character of great authorities are followed by people in general. Leaders of ideal character are therefore needed in society. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared in this material world just to show the example of perfect authority, and people have to follow his path. The Vedic injunction is that one cannot understand the absolute truth simply by mental speculation or logical argument. One has to follow the authorities. Mahajano, Yenagata, Sapanta. Great authorities should be followed. Otherwise, if we simply depend on the scriptures, we are sometimes misled by rascals, or else we cannot understand or follow the different spiritual injunctions. The best path is to follow the authorities. The 4 Brahmana sages stated that Krishna is naturally the protector of the cows and Brahmanas. Go, Brahmana, Hitaya Cha. When Krishna was on this planet, he set a practical example. He was a cowherd boy, and he was very respectful to the Brahmanas and devotees. It is also affirmed herein that the Brahmanas are the best of the twice born. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are all twice born, but the Brahmanas are the best. When there is a fight between 2 persons, Each of them protects the upper part of his body, the head, the arms, and the belly. Similarly, for the actual advancement of human civilization, the best part of the social body, namely the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, the intelligent class of men, the military class, and the mercantile men, should be given special protection. Protection of the laborers should not be neglected, but special protection should be given to the upper orders. Of all classes of men, the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas should be given special protection. They should be worshipped. When their protection is performed, it is just like worshipping God. That is not exactly protection, it is duty. One should worship the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas by offering them all kinds of endowments and sweet words. And if one has no means to offer anything, he must at least use sweet words to pacify them. The Lord personally exhibited this behavior towards the Kumaras. If this system is not introduced by the leaders, then human civilization will be lost. When there is no protection and special treatment for persons who are devotees of the Lord, who are highly intelligent in spiritual life, then the whole society is lost. The word Nangshati indicates that such a civilization becomes spoiled and is annihilated. The kind of civilization recommended is called Devapata, which means the royal road of the demigods. Demigods are supposed to be fully fixed in devotional service or Krishna consciousness. That is the auspicious path that should be protected. If the authorities or the leaders of society do not give special respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and do not offer them not only sweet words, but all facilities, then the path of progress will be lost to human civilization. The Lord personally wanted to teach this, and therefore he offered so much praise to the Kumaras. Text 24. Dear Lord, you never want the auspicious path to be destroyed, for you are the reservoir of all goodness. Just to benefit people in general, you destroy the evil element by your mighty potency. You are the proprietor of the three creations and the maintainer of the entire universe. Therefore, your potency is not reduced by your submissive behavior. Rather, by submission, you exhibit your transcendental pastimes. Purport. Lord Krishna was never reduced in his position by becoming a cowherd boy, or by offering respect to Sudama Brahmana, or his other devotees like Nanda Maharaj, Vasudeva, Maharaj Yudhishthir, and the Pandava's mother Kunti. Everyone knew that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, yet his behavior was exemplary. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Satchidananda Vigraha. His form is completely spiritual, full of bliss and knowledge, and it is eternal. Because the living entities are his parts and parcels, originally they also belong to the same quality of eternal form as the Lord. But when they come in contact with Maya, the material potency, due to their forgetfulness, their existential constitution is covered. We should try to understand the appearance of Lord Krishna in this spirit, as the Kumaras pray to him. He is eternally a cowherd boy at Vrindavan. He is eternally the leader of the battle of Kurukshetra. And he is eternally the opulent prince of Dwarka and the lover of the damsels of Vrindavan. All his appearances are meaningful because they show his real characteristics to the conditioned souls who have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Lord. He does everything for their benefit. The force exhibited in the battle of Kurukshetra by the desire of Krishna and through the agency of Arjuna was also necessary, because when people become too irreligious, force is required. Non-violence in this respect is rascaldom. Text 25. O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. Purport. The sages, the four Kumaras, now reject their cursing of the two doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, because they are now conscious that persons who engage in the service of the Lord cannot be at fault at any stage. It is said that anyone who has implicit faith in the service of the Lord, or who actually engages in transcendental loving service, has all the good qualities of the demigods. Therefore, a devotee cannot be at fault. If sometimes it is found that he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangement, that should not be taken very seriously. The cursing of Jaya and Vijaya is here repented. Now the Kumaras are thinking in terms of their position in the modes of passion and ignorance, and they are prepared to accept any kind of punishment from the Lord. In general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed that the devotee who faithfully serves the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu, or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in the service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously. Text 26. The Lord replied, O Brahmanas, know that the punishment you inflicted on them was originally ordained by me, and therefore they will fall to a birth in a demoniac family. But they will be firmly united with me in thought, through mental concentration, intensified by anger, and they will return to my presence shortly. So here's another evidence of the secret that we talked about yesterday or the day before, how this was not just an accident, it was actually ordained by Krishna, because he wanted to go to the material world and fight, and there's no one really who can fight with him, you know. And he can't fight with anybody there in Vaikuntha, because no one who's going to fight with him there in Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
So therefore, he allowed the inspiration of Jaya and Vijaya to bring this on themselves, so that they could go, that this service attitude in them. That's why it says here, originally ordained. This punishment you inflicted on them was originally ordained by me. Originally ordained by me in mind. It came from him first. Purport. So it's all in the service of the Lord. Purport. The Lord stated that the punishment inflicted by the sages upon the doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, was conceived by the Lord himself. Without the Lord's sanction, nothing can happen. It is to be understood that there was a plan in the cursing of the Lord's devotees in Vaikuntha, and his plan is explained by many stalwart authorities. The Lord sometimes desires to fight. The fighting spirit also exists in the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how could fighting be manifested at all? Because the Lord is the source of everything, anger and fighting are also inherent in his personality. When he desires to fight with someone, he has to find an enemy. But in the Vaikuntha world, there is no enemy, because everyone is engaged fully in his service. Therefore, he sometimes comes to the material world as an incarnation in order to manifest his fighting spirit. In Bhagavad Gita 4:8, it is also said that the Lord appears just to give protection to the devotees and to annihilate the non-devotees. The non-devotees are found in the material world, not in the spiritual world. Therefore, when the Lord wants to fight, he has to come to this world. But who will fight with the Supreme Lord? No one is able to fight with him. Therefore, because the Lord's pastimes in the material world are always performed with his associates, not with others, he has to find some devotee who will play the part of an enemy. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says to Arjuna, "My dear Arjuna, both you and I have appeared many, many times in this material world, but you have forgotten, whereas I remember." Thus, Jaya and Vijaya were selected by the Lord to fight with him in the material world, and that was the reason the sages came to see him, and accidentally the doorkeepers were cursed. It was the Lord's desire to send them to the material world, not perpetually, but for some time. Therefore, just as on a theatrical stage, someone takes the part of enemy to the proprietor of the stage. Therefore, just as on a theatrical stage, someone takes the part of enemy to the proprietor of the stage, although the play is for a short time, there is no permanent enmity between the servant and the proprietor. So the Surajanas, devotees, were cursed by the sages to go to the Asurajana, or atheistic families. That a devotee should come into an atheistic family is surprising, but it is simply a show. After finishing their mock fighting, both the devotee and the Lord are again associated in the spiritual planets. That is very explicitly explained here. The conclusion is that no one falls from the spiritual world or Vaikuntha planet, for it is the eternal abode. But sometimes, as the Lord desires, devotees come into this material world as preachers or as atheists. In each case, we must understand that there is a plan of the Lord. Lord Buddha, for example, was an incarnation, yet he preached atheism. There is no God. But actually, there was a plan behind this, as explained in the Bhagavatam. Text 27. Lord Brahma said, after seeing the Lord of Vaikuntha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the self-illuminated Vaikuntha planet, the sages left that transcendental abode. Purport. The transcendental abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and confirmed in this verse, is self-illuminated. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that in the spiritual world there is no need of sun, moon, or electricity. This indicates that all the planets there are self-illuminated, self-sufficient, and independent. Everything there is complete. Lord Krishna says that once one goes to that Vaikuntha planet, he never returns. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha never return to the material world, but the incident of Jaya and Vijaya was a different case. They came to the material world for some time, and then they returned to Vaikuntha. Text 28. The sages circumambulated the Supreme Lord, offered their obeisances, and returned, extremely delighted at learning of the divine opulences of the Vaishnava. Purport. It is still a respectful practice to circumambulate the Lord in Hindu temples. Especially in Vaishnava temples, there is an arrangement for people to offer their respects to the deity and circumambulate the temple at least 3 times. 29. The Lord then said to his attendants, Jaya and Vijaya, "Depart this place, but fear not. All glories unto you. Though I am capable of nullifying the Brahmana's curse, I would not do so, On the contrary, it has my approval. Purport. As explained in connection with text 26, all the incidents that took place had the approval of the Lord. Ordinarily, there is no possibility that the four sages could be so angry with the doorkeepers, nor could the Supreme Lord neglect his two doorkeepers, nor can one come back from Vaikuntha after once taking birth there. All these incidents, therefore, were designed by the Lord himself for the sake of his pastimes in the material world. Thus, he plainly says that it was done with his approval. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for inhabitants of Vaikuntha to come back to this material world simply because of a Brahminical curse. The Lord especially blesses the so-called culprits. All glories to you. A devotee once accepted by the Lord can never fall down. That is the conclusion of this incident. Text 30. This departure from Vaikuntha was foretold by Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. She was very angry because when she left my abode and then returned, you stopped her at the gate while I was sleeping. Whoa. Text 31. The Lord assured the two Vaikuntha inhabitants, Jaya and Vijaya, by practicing the mystic yoga system in anger, you will be cleansed of the sin of disobeying the Brahmanas, and within a very short time return to me. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead advised the two doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, that by dint of bhakti yoga, in anger, they would be delivered from the curses of the Brahmanas. Srila Madhva Muni remarks in this connection that by practicing bhakti yoga, one can become free from all sinful reactions. Even a Brahma Shapa, or curse by a Brahmana, which cannot be overcome by any other means, can be overcome by bhakti yoga. One can practice bhakti yoga in many rasas. There are 12 rasas, 5 primary and 7 secondary. The 5 primary rasas constitute direct bhakti yoga, but although the 7 secondary rasas are indirect, they are also counted within bhakti yoga if they are used in the service of the Lord. In other words, bhakti yoga is all-inclusive. If one somehow or other becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes engaged in bhakti yoga, as described in Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:29-15, kamam, krodam, bhayam. The gopis were attracted to Krishna by bhakti yoga in a relationship of lusty desire, kama. Similarly, Kamsa was attached to bhakti yoga by dint of fear of his death. Thus bhakti yoga is so powerful that even becoming an enemy of the Lord and always thinking of him can deliver one very quickly. It is said, Vishnu bhakta sprito daiva asuras tad vipanyaha. Devotees of Lord Vishnu are called demigods, whereas non-devotees are called asuras. But bhakti yoga is so powerful that both demigods and asuras can derive its benefits if they always think of the personality of Godhead. The basic principle of bhakti yoga is to think of the Supreme Lord always. Repeat that one again. The basic principle of bhakti yoga is to think of the Supreme Lord always. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 1865, Manmana bhavamad bhakta, always think of me. It doesn't matter which way one thinks. The very thought of the personality of Godhead is the basic principle of bhakti yoga. In the material planets, there are different grades of sinful activities, of which disrespecting a Brahmana or a Vaishnava is the most sinful. Here it is clearly stated that one can overcome even that grave sin simply by thinking of Vishnu, not even favorably, but in anger. Thus, even if those who are not devotees always think of Vishnu, they become free from all sinful activities. Krishna consciousness is the highest form of thought. Lord Vishnu is thought of in this age by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. From the statements of the Bhagavatam, it appears that if one thinks of Krishna even as an enemy, that particular qualification, thinking of Vishnu or Krishna, cleanses one of all sins. How kind is Krishna? Yeah. How kind is Krishna? Text 32. After thus speaking, at the door of Vaikuntha, the Lord returned to his abode, where there are many celestial airplanes in all surpassing wealth and splendor. Purport. It is clear from this verse that all the incidents took place at the entrance of Vaikuntha Loka. In other words, the sages were not actually within Vaikuntha Loka, but were at the gate. It could be asked, how could they return to the material world if they entered Vaikuntha Loka? But factually, they did not enter, and therefore they returned. There are many similar incidents where great yogis and brahmanas, by dint of their... That might mean it's low in or maybe, is it plugged in? Huh?
It's just a text message.
Text message, okay. We'll start the purport from the beginning. It is clear from this verse that all the incidents took place at the entrance of Vaikuntha Loka. In other words, the sages were not actually within Vaikuntha Loka, but were at the gate. It could be asked, how could they return to the material world if they entered Vaikuntha Loka? But factually, they did not enter, and therefore they returned. There are many similar incidents where great yogis and brahmanas, by dint of their yoga practice, have gone from this material world to Vaikuntha Loka, but they were not meant to stay there. They came back. It is also confirmed here that the Lord was surrounded by many Vaikuntha airplanes. Vaikuntha Loka is described here as having splendid opulence, far surpassing the splendor of this material world. All of the living creatures, including the demigods, are born of Brahma, and Brahma is born of Lord Vishnu. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. Lord Vishnu is the origin of all manifestations in the material world. Those who know that Lord Vishnu is the origin of everything, who are conversant with the process of creation, and who understand that Vishnu or Krishna is the most worshipable object of all living entities, engage themselves in Vishnu worship as Vaishnavas. The Vedic hymns also confirm this. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The goal of life is to understand Vishnu. The Bhagavatam also confirms this elsewhere. Foolish people, not knowing that Vishnu is the supreme worshipable object, create so many worshipable objects in this material world, and therefore they fall down. Text 33. But those two gatekeepers, the best of the demigods, their beauty and luster diminished by the curse of the brahmanas, became morose and fell from Vaikuntha, the abode of the Supreme Lord. Text 34. Then, as Jaya and Vijaya fell from the Lord's abode, A great roar of disappointment arose from all the demigods who were sitting in their splendid airplanes. Lord Brahma continued, those two principal doorkeepers of the personality of Godhead have now entered the womb of Diti, the powerful semen of Kashyapa Muni, having covered them. Purport. Here is clear proof of how a living entity coming originally from Vaikuntha Loka is encaged in material elements. The living entity takes shelter within the semen of a father, which is injected within the womb of a mother, and with the help of the mother's emulsified ovum, the living entity grows a particular type of body. In this connection, it is to be remembered that the mind of Kashyapa Muni was not in order when he conceived the two sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Therefore, the semen he discharged was simultaneously extremely powerful and mixed with the quality of anger. It is to be concluded that while conceiving a child, one's mind must be very sober and devotional. For this purpose, the Garbhadhana Sanskara is recommended in the Vedic scriptures. If the mind of the father is not sober, the semen discharged will not be very good. Thus, the living entity, wrapped in the matter produced from the father and mother, will be demoniac, like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. The conditions of conception are to be carefully studied. This is a very great science. Text 36. It is the prowess of these twin asuras, demons, that has disturbed you, for it has minimized your power. There is no remedy within my power, however, for it is the Lord himself who desires to do all this. Purport. Although Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, formerly Jaya and Vijaya, became asuras, the demigods of this material world could not control them. And therefore, Lord Brahma said that neither he nor all the demigods could counteract the disturbance they created. They came within the material world by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he alone could counteract such disturbances. In other words, although Jaya and Vijaya assumed the bodies of asuras, they remained more powerful than anyone, thus proving that the Supreme Personality of Godhead desired to fight because the fighting spirit is also within him. He is the original in everything, but when he desires to fight, he must fight with a devotee. Therefore, by his desire only were Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the Kumaras. The Lord ordered the gatekeepers to go down to the material world to become his enemies so that he could fight with them, and his fighting desires would be satisfied by the service of his personal devotees. Brahma showed the demigods that the situation created by the darkness for which they were disturbed was the desire of the Supreme Lord. He wanted to show that even though these two attendants were coming in the forms of demons, they were very powerful, greater than the demigods, who could not control them. No one can surpass the acts of the Supreme Lord. The demigods were also advised not to try to counteract this incident, because it was ordered by the Lord. Similarly, anyone who is ordered by the Lord to perform some action in this material world, especially preaching his glories, cannot be counteracted by anyone. But the will of the Lord is executed under all circumstances. Text 37. My dear sons, the Lord is the controller of the three modes of nature and is responsible for the creation, preservation, and dissolution of the universe. His wonderful creative power, Yogamaya, cannot be easily understood even by the masters of yoga. That most ancient person the personality of Godhead will alone come to our rescue. What purpose can we serve on his behalf by deliberating on the subject? Purport. When something is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not be disturbed by it, even if it appears to be a reverse according to one's calculations. For example, sometimes we see that a powerful preacher is killed, or sometimes he is put into difficulty, just as Haridas Thakur was. He was a great devotee who came into this material world to execute the will of the Lord by preaching the Lord's glories. But Haridas was punished at the hands of the Qazi by being beaten in 22 marketplaces. Similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified, and Prahlad Maharaj was put through so many tribulations. The Pandavas, who were direct friends of Krishna, lost their kingdom. Their wife was insulted, and they had to undergo many severe tribulations. Seeing all these reverses affect devotees, one should not be disturbed. One should simply understand that in these matters there must be some plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavatam's conclusion is that a devotee is never disturbed by such reverses. He accepts even reverse conditions as the grace of the Lord. One who continues to serve the Lord, even in reverse conditions, is assured that he will go back home, back to Godhead, back to the Vaikuntha planets. Lord Brahma assured the demigods that there was no use in talking about how the disturbing situation of darkness was taking place, since the actual fact was that it was ordered by the Supreme Lord. Lord Brahma knew this because he was a great devotee. It was possible for him to understand the plan of the Lord. It was possible for him to understand the plan of the Lord. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 16th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijaya, cursed by the sages. Jai Hari Bol, all glories to Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, and his supreme will, and his protection of all the devotees, and all glories to the service of the Supreme Lord's devotees, even they want to become enemies of him, to serve him by fighting. Hare Krishna. Okay, we're going to stop our reading tonight. It's about 5 minutes from an hour. We started at 7:40, 7:35. All right. The plot thickens. Now Jaya and Vijaya are going to take birth as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. We'll see what's going to happen. All right. Anybody have any reflections? Any questions?
We have a question from Vilas Manjari Dasi. Says, Maharaj, could you explain more about the meaning of Goddess of Fortune? The meaning of this name and the identity of the Goddess of Fortune. How is it that Lakshmi is referred to as the Goddess of Fortune, but also he is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune?
Okay. Thank you, Vilas Manjari. You're all over there in the Harinam. I mean, I'm very touched that you're listening still, and what to speak of asking such wonderful questions and giving reflections. Well, the Supreme Goddess of Fortune is Srimati Radharani. She's the Supreme Goddess of Fortune. And Krishna, the original form of Krishna, the original form of God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he only enjoys through her. And the primeval gopis, the main gopis, are actually direct extensions of her body. They're extensions of her different moods. And in that way, Radharani pleases Krishna in many ways, in many forms. And that's what it means by Krishna being served by many thousands of goddesses of fortune. There's actually only one supreme goddess of fortune, and Lakshmi, who is the goddess of fortune of Vishnu, he only has one goddess of fortune serving him. But Krishna has thousands and hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune serving him. It's a difference in opulence. Even though externally it appears that Vishnu is more opulent in certain ways, actually Krishna has all the opulences in full, because they're all coming from him. And similarly, the goddess of fortune is an expansion of Radharani. And she expands to be with Krishna and fit his mood wherever he goes. Whatever expansion he goes into, the goddess of fortune also appears to be his consort in a particular form, in an exact form that matches his form and his mood. So in this way, there's unlimited goddesses of fortune. Because he's expanding himself all over the universes and appearing in so many different places at so many different times. Even the deity form of Krishna are his incarnations, Archa, Murti, and the deities that come of Lakshmi or Radharani or Sita, Ram, they're all expansions of the original goddess of fortune. So the goddess of fortune in Vaikuntha has a particular mood and a particular form and a particular way of serving Vishnu. And Srimati Radharani serves Krishna in the most unique, wonderful, unlimited way. Does that help? We'll find out. Hare Krishna. Anyway, thanks again, Vilas Manjari, for your participation in our little yajna over here, trying to spread the glories of Srila Prabhupada's purports throughout the world. Okay, Matt's got a reflection.
And Vilas Manjari says, yes, thank you. I just liked in one of the verses, it says, in Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed that the devotees who faithfully serve the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu or a saintly person. Yes. So, if you're a devotee, Krishna still, has that kind of mercy.
Yes, this is very important for all of us who are in this material world, because, as Prabhupada used to say, to err is human. So, only Krishna never makes mistakes. So anyone's capable of making a mistake. Even liberated souls make mistakes, Yudhishthira is one of the greatest eternal souls, eternal servants of Krishna, and yet he had that gambling match, and his Kshatriya nature got the better of him, and he of course, the Kshatriya code is if someone challenged them to gamble, they have to do it. It's their duty, So he did it, and then he lost, and they had to go into exile, and he lost Draupadi. It was a mess, But that didn't mean that he was any less a devotee. Even though he succumbed to the ills of gambling. Yeah, so Krishna says, it's mentioned in that purport, apichet suduracharo. So the word duracharo means difficult or bad. And suduracharo means very bad. Suduracharo, apichet, sudur. Even though the devotee does something horrible, that's a pretty strong word actually. If he is engaged constantly in devotional service. And it's that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains many details, one of which is that as long as a devotee is not strong enough, there will be perhaps periodic slips, accidental fall downs, not deliberately and purposefully and trying to do something for sense gratification, and then thinking that it's all right because I'm chanting Hare Krishna. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about an accidental fall down that comes from the strength of the material energy, number one, and some perhaps bad habit that one has developed by the psychophysical physical nature that we've achieved by previous births and previous activities. So, but there's another verse that it isn't chanted so much or quoted so much. Apichet asipapebhyo sarvabhyo papakritama. So this is the same construction. Apichet asipapebhyo, but because of, instead of suduracharo, apichet apipapebhyo, even if one performs the most sinful of all sins, if he's situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, he can cross over the ocean of nations. So these two verses are related to one another. In the translation of Apichet Suduracharo, which is in the 9th chapter, 30th verse, Prabhupada translates the last part of that verse as, because he is properly situated in his determination. So it's very important that we, with our intelligence, decide that we're going to perform devotional service and nothing else. Even if we are immature, we have to decide with our intelligence that we want to do this and we don't want to do anything else. And then even if there is a slip, Krishna very easily just... Yes. I don't know if sweeps on is the right word, but he purifies it. Purifies it, yeah. Hare Krishna. Okay, I think we'll stop there. Thank you very much, everybody, for all of your kindness, engaging this fallen soul over here, Govardhan, in this wonderful devotional service of reading Srila Prabhupada's books to you. And may I be able to do this. May you give your mercy so that I can do this for the rest of my life every day. I've made a vow, and it seems easy, but to do it every day without fail is not so easy. So I need the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna. Jai. The four Kumaras ki Jai. Shri Vishnu ki Jai. Go Premanandi. See you tomorrow night. Haribo.